We continue to follow the deadly Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas. The man who is believed to have died in that truck grew up here in Ohio and was a highly decorated U.S. Army Green Beret. Over the last 24 hours, we've learned more about Matthew Leibelsberger. 19 investigator Sarah Goldenberg live with more about his life and his last days. Sarah.
Matthew Leibelsberger was married and had an 8-month-old daughter. His father last spoke with him on Christmas. He told CBS News everything seemed normal and his son loved America.
At the time of the truck explosion, New Year's Day on the Las Vegas Strip, 37-year-old Matthew Leibelsberger was on holiday leave from his station in Germany. He married his second wife in 2022 and became a father last year. They lived in Colorado Springs with his family while he traveled back and forth to Europe. Cindy Helwig is their neighbor.
They just had a baby and we'd say hi to each other. She was a really friendly person. So
Leibelsberger married his first wife here in Ohio, according to Franklin County court records showing he applied for a marriage license in late 2012. A football star at Bucyrus High School, Leibelsberger grew up in Crawford County and made headlines in local newspapers for sports and his military service. 19 investigators found Leibelsberger served 2 tours in Afghanistan and at one time collected donations for children there. Fardeen Fetwat says he met Leibelsberger while working as an interpreter in Afghanistan, and he saved his life.
He was really a smart guy. He will never do this kind of stuff.
Police say Leibelsberger died of a gunshot wound to the head before the explosion in front of Trump International Hotel. It all came as a huge shock to his friend.
I feel that I lose a brother, not a colleague.
Leibelsberger was not affiliated with a political party. A relative told CNN he had a lot of respect for President Trump when he was in office. As family and friends remain shocked, FBI and Las Vegas Metropolitan Police are trying to determine a motive of this former high school football star from Ohio.
So as I mentioned, the motivation at this point is unknown. We are, as I mentioned earlier, following investigative leads both domestically and internationally as well. And so that includes search warrants and witness interviews, collecting forensic information, and basically trying to compile the facts.
Leibelsberger's family says he had no signs of extremist beliefs or mental health issues. Live in the newsroom, Sarah Goldenberg, 19 News.